Hello, souls and demons. Welcome back. Today's story featuring in my portal is called Dark Convoy, written by the very talented Cal Ness. So, sit back, grip your seats, and enjoy. In or out? On the other line, it's Robbie Clyde. Haven't seen him in 5 years. He got a dishonorable discharge from the Marines for trying to rob an armory. Sent him to the brig. Last I heard, he was still there. In or out? Robbie always had a real direct way of asking things. No bullshit. Give it to me straight. If you can't deliver the goods, I'll ply my trade elsewhere. Good to hear from you, Robbie. Answer the question. Give me the full question, then. I'll tell you more over a drink, but I gotta know you're good for the commitment. No backing out of this one. I look at my valet uniform hanging in the closet. When it comes to drivers, I'm as good as they come. Give me a Geo, and I'll push it until you're out of whatever bind you're in. Give me a Tesla, and I'll parallel park the fucker at 60 miles an hour without a scratch. But being a valet isn't cutting it anymore. The money's good enough. I've got a freezer full of Hot Pockets and a fridge full of Bud. But I miss mashing motors. I miss the rush. Never did any of it for the money. The high paid for itself. I think it over for a second, then I say, in. Robbie smiles so big I can hear his jaw crack through the line. That's what I was hoping for. Meet me at Earl's on the 101. And as if sensing that I was thinking of backing out, Robbie says, I've been going there a lot recently. Their Long Island iced teas are still a $10 blackout. I needed a blackout like I needed a hole in the head. But seeing Robbie after 5 years of radio silence would be nice. My life is full of ghosts. People I knew, fucks I threw. The past comes back to haunt me now and again. But when it comes to ghosts, Robbie's the Casper type. What time? I ask. Tonight, 7 o'clock, or you're out. Earl's is a neon-lit roadside joint cloaked in coastal fog. Strippers straddle chrome poles. Cigarette smoke creates a pea soup haze. Even though smoking within 50 feet of a building is illegal in my state. Everyone's in real good form tonight. I can see that through the open doorway. The bouncer scans me with his eyes. I'm average height and below average weight. I'm a bit over 6 feet, 160 with wet clothes. But I can scrap, and anyone who sees me knows it. I'm a skeleton with a jackhammer pulse. Evening, says the bouncer. Evening yourself. Gotta frisk ya. Since when do they start frisking people when they walk into bars? Since last week, the bouncer replies. Guy brought a gun in on Monday. Shot a trucker in the gut. The dude's stomach is a mixing bowl now, and he's still in the ICU. The shooter's in the can. But we don't want that type of shit happening around here again. Policia are no bueno, as they say down south. That's not how they say it. The bouncer chews on it as if pondering lost afternoons spent in a high school Spanish class. Well, anyway, says the bouncer, shrugging. Gotta frisk ya. Don't bother, I reply. I've got a permit for it, concealed. Put it in your car, then. I haven't been gun-free since before I joined the Marines. No one takes my piece. No one tells me where to put it. I'm meeting someone. I don't give a flying shit who you're meeting. No guns. And if you keep it up... Someone comes into the tin-frame doorway behind the bouncer, cigarette hanging out of his mouth like a loose tooth. He's all right, says the guy in the doorway. Fanning the smoke away from my eyes, I see that it's Robbie Clyde. "Leave him be, Cletus," Robbie says, clapping the bouncer on the back. "That ain't my fucking name." "Jesus Christ," said Robbie. "People need to lighten up. Maybe I'd be better off going back to the brig where everyone doesn't take life so goddamn seriously." Cletus turns back to me, gives me one more scan for good measure, and steps aside. "Just don't stir up any trouble." I follow Robbie past the door and into Earl's. When we get inside, he turns around and pulls me in for a hug. "Long time no see, friend," he says. "Things good?" Good as they can be parking rich people's cars for a living. I remember Afghanistan with a strange sense of fondness. I remember Robbie's and my tour together. I remember the convoys we ran, driving the Humvee with Robbie sitting shotgun, his M4 lying across his lap. I remember the friends we made. Some came home. Some got their heads blown off on the baking hut's sand. I also remember the decision I made to opt out of Robbie's armory heist, too. Our paths forked, but we shared the experience of seeing the hell of war standing side by side, even though we did different things after the tour wrapped up. "You look good," says Robbie. "May I buy you a lap dance?" He motions to one of the strippers. She's got a honey-made complexion that makes the neon orange leggings she's wearing buzz like a sugar rush. I give Robbie's offer some genuine consideration, but I shake my head. "I'm all set. I'd love to take you up on that drink, though." "Done," says Robbie. He leads me toward the back of Earl's. I'm expecting us to stop at the far corner and order drinks. But we pass by the bar. We pass by the booths filled with crusty patrons looking to drink away their problems. Cigarette smoke stings my eyes. The skunk stench of high-quality weed mixes in. I smell something chemical, too. Meth, probably. Earl draws a rough crowd. Leather-clad bikers with tattoos their moms would hate sit like birds on a wire at the bar. Truckers with ass sores from hauling freight 400 miles a day occupy the comfier booths. Whatever's in the haze of Earl's, I'm high by contact. Walking through the red door and into the back of the bar feels like walking into a different world. I should have turned around right there and got the fuck out. Hindsight's 20/20, as they say. If we all had crystal balls, there would be peace on Earth. But that isn't the way it works. Life's about making more good decisions than bad ones, and praying to God the ratio is favorable enough that you get through unscathed. When Robbie and I walk into the back room, I see someone else I recognize. His name's D. Richards. He served with Robbie and me. He also made the fateful choice not to go with Robbie on his armory heist, even though he came from a similar background as we did. That is, the background of people who consider going on heists, even if they have the good sense to opt out before things get hot. D was a sniper, but he was accurate to the nanometer with any gun. He could blow off a pack goal from 1.5 miles away without holding his breath. Did so to countless unlucky souls we met during our tour of hell. "It's been a while, D." He smiles that big smile of his, like a teddy bear. Friendly as hell, loving even. But he got programmed to be a killer just like the rest of us. All you had to do was flip the switch. "Good seeing ya," says D. "Didn't think I ever would." D turns to Robbie. "I heard about this dumbass trying to hit an armory after I got out. Glad I didn't get roped into that one." Robbie shrugs. In addition to his direct way of speaking, he had a devil-may-care attitude, which made living a life of crime a natural choice. "All right," says Robbie. You guys take your shot at me, then we'll get down to business. I shook my head. No need to dredge up the past. I'll let D look like the asshole. Appreciate that, says D, shooting me a wink. While Robbie goes back to the bar to get me a drink and D sits down, I notice another person in the room. The back of his head, anyway. And even though all I can see is the back of his head, I realize I don't know him. Who are you? I ask. Up until then, all I saw was the eggshell white of his dome. When I see his face, I find myself wishing he'd turn back around. He's without question the ugliest person I've ever seen. He looks like an aging boxer whose face got altered one too many times. His right eye is blind, and it rolls around milkily in its socket. He's shorter than I am, but heavier, and using my soldier's radar, my ability to sense danger, I realize he's not someone to be fucked with. Whatever rock he crawled out from under, I find myself wishing he'd go back. But before I can change my mind about things and leave, Robbie comes back with drinks and introduces us. Now that we're all here, said Robbie, I'd like you to meet Mr. Gray. The guy named Mr. Gray sticks out his hand. It's like a raw piece of ham. Big, thick cut, a raw shade of pink that makes me think twice about shaking it. I grab the drink from Robbie so I don't have to. I appreciate you coming on short notice, says Mr. Gray. Hard to find reliable help these days. Through the back door of the room, 6 more people burst in so suddenly that I reach for my gun. There are 4 bikers, the kind of dudes who run drugs who kill first and never ask any follow-up questions. 2 of them are carrying sawed-off shotguns. One has a Bowie knife on his hip so big, it may as well have been a machete. The other has a bandolier of ammo belted across his chest. The cartridges are massive. I'm a gun nut and a military man. I can tell with a glance that they're meant for an M60 machine gun. There are 2 other people as well. One guy who looks about as hard as an al dente noodle. He's pushing a wheelchair. Sitting in it is a woman. She's gasping for air. Her skin so dry it looks like powder. But even from a distance, I can see her ruby red nails, jet black hair, and striking emerald eyes. Despite being sick as a dog, the woman's beautiful. What the hell is wrong with her? Sick, says Mr. Gray. I can see that. What's she sick with? I want to know what I signed up for. Mr. Gray looked at me with a rabid dog's gaze. His blind eye rolls around aimlessly, searching for purchase. His jaw clenches like a vice. You haven't signed up for anything yet, says Mr. Gray. And I'm starting to wonder if we don't need you after all. I look at the bikers. Their trigger fingers are inches from home, waiting for an excuse to light me up. Robbie steps in. Hey, calm down, everyone. I find it hard. The girl's hyperventilating now, her skin becoming more dry and powdery by the second. A strong gust of wind would blow her away. D steps up beside me, sensing trouble. I see he's got a gun on his hip. Military issue Colt 45. Knowing D's aim and confidence, he could take out 3 of the guys in a shootout. I'd be good for 1 if shit goes south. We'd have a fighting chance of making it out alive. Mr. Gray snaps his fingers. The bikers, like dogs on command, step down. We don't have much time, says Mr. Gray. As you can see, our cargo is almost expired. I need you to say right now whether you are in or out. The convoy is leaving in 5 minutes either way. Robbie steps up beside Dee and I. He's in, Robbie answers for me. I ran convoys with him for years in Afghanistan. If you want someone behind the wheel, it's my boy here. Mr. Gray nods. So answer me, he says. Are you good for it? Good for what? I answer. And are you good for it? We haven't even talked about what it is yet. 50,000, answers Mr. Gray. I do the math in my head. Me, Robbie, and Dee, 4 bikers and the chump pushing the wheelchair. $6,000 to 50,000 each, says Mr. Gray. He nods to the bikers. These boys are salaried. 50,000. Enough to take a year off. Enough to start saving. Get a new life that's halfway worth living. What's the catch? No catch, says Mr. Gray. It's an hour-long job at most. He beckons to me. I walk forward as if drawn by an invisible magnet. I look at the table Mr. Gray is sitting at. There's a map laying over it. I see Earl's March clearly. Seated astride the 101. In black Sharpie, Mr. Gray has drawn a route running from Earl's down to a lake. Having looked at 1,000 maps, I estimate that the lake's a few miles away at most. I need you to get her to the lake, he said. He points back to the girl in the wheelchair. The oxygen in the room isn't enough. She's dying, quickly. A punctured lung, maybe. In need of some meds that we can't give her. $50,000 plus the sympathy I feel for people in pain, which always made me a liability as a soldier, is enough to convince me at the moment that I'm in. What's at the lake? I ask. For the first time, I notice that Mr. Gray has a mouth full of gold teeth. Salvation, he says. I follow Mr. Gray, the bikers, and the wimp pushing the wheelchair out back. Robbie and Dee are next to me on either side. It's enough to start over. Robbie's nodding to himself. 50,000's enough to get out of the life. Damn straight, says Dee. What's at the lake, Robbie? I ask. He shrugs. No clue, but if we get there, we're good. We've done this before. I ran convoys, sure, but they were in armored trucks. Most often, Cougar. My breath hitches. Thought you'd like it, said Robbie. It's a blast from the past. A Cougar 6x6 AMRAP. The same model I drove in Afghanistan. If you've never seen one before, think of a Humvee on steroids. You could drive a Cougar through a wall made of 6 feet of reinforced concrete. The things are made to withstand IEDs. The ones I drove during the war made it through firefights without a scratch. Dee claps a hand on my shoulder. Like old times, he says. Where the fuck did this guy get a Cougar? I ask. Not sure. And more importantly, I interrupt, why do we need one? Robbie wipes his forehead with the back of his hand. I hadn't noticed until then that he was sweating. Robbie rarely got nervous. Whatever we gotten ourselves into had done the job. I think we can expect a firefight going down, says Robbie. But all we gotta worry about is sticking to the script. Like I said, we've done this before. One of the bikers opens the back of the Cougar. The 3 others help the limp noodle who's been pushing the wheelchair lift the dying girl inside. She's taken a turn for the worst. Now, she's screaming. In addition to disintegrating into powder, what's left of her lungs is rotting in real time, making it sound like she's underwater. "What's wrong with her, Robbie?" "I have no idea," he says. "Mr. Gray only told me we'd be transporting cargo, but she's sick. And she's important to Mr. Gray. Important enough that he's willing to pay us an assload to drive her a few miles to a lake." He turns to Dee and I, pulling us in for a teammates huddle. "If we do this, there's more where that came from. Lots more." The three of us walk over to the Cougar. I check the tires. I check the exterior looking for faults. It's a brand new model. "Look good?" asks Mr. Gray. "Yeah," I say. "Real good." Before hopping into the back of the Cougar with the dying girl and her limp noodle caretaker, I see Dee open a gun case. Inside is a Heckler & Koch HK-416, the same gun used by SEAL Team 6 to kill Osama bin Laden. In Dee's hands, it's as good as a rocket launcher. "I asked for something with a little kick," Dee says, smiling. "Here we are." He gets into the Cougar, and the bikers close the door behind him. Then they mount their hogs, chrome stallions ready to fucking rock. The biker with the bandolier feeds the belt into the M60 machine gun that's been welded to his handlebars. "Robbie's got the map," says Mr. Gray, "but my boys will lead the way. All you gotta do is drive." "Who wants this girl?" I ask. Mr. Gray, for the first time, looks uneasy. "There are things much worse than criminals," he says. "Devils in fresh-pressed suits." The hogs ignite, belching out black smoke and thunderclap growls. "Just drive," Mr. Gray says. "All you gotta do is drive." I start up the Cougar. Robbie's sitting shotgun, an M4 machine gun laying across his lap, just like old times. I look in the side mirror and see that Mr. Gray is walking back to Earl's. He doesn't turn around. If he does, it'll jinx it. I've seen it before. Kingpins who set up the job, then throw up a prayer the plan works, never looking back, never second-guessing themselves because doing so is bad luck. I slide open the window to the back of the Cougar. Dee's back there, the machine gun yoked around his shoulders. The limp noodle guy is crying. The girl continues to die. "She's gorgeous," says Robbie. We're both staring at her ruby red nails. "Maybe in another life," I say. "I don't want to catch whatever she's got. Let's just get this over with." For the first time, the limp noodle speaks. "Water," he says to Dee. "We have to keep pouring water on her." He leads the way. I watch him empty a massive jug out of it, the kind you see in an office water cooler, onto her body. She soaks it up like a sponge. "If you say so," says Dee. A confused look on his face, but he follows suit, dousing the girl just like the limp noodle told them to. We pull out of the parking lot of Earl's and get on the 101. 2 bikers ahead and 2 on my flank. We drive for a few hundred yards. Nothing to it except for the girl moaning in the back. But then I notice something. Ahead, there's a roadblock. I can make out 6 cars and an armored truck. 2 of the cars belong to cops, headlights off. They blend into the shadows. 4 of the cars are black sedans that belong to people farther up the law enforcement food chain. The truck belongs to a SWAT team. It's not so different from the Cougar I'm driving. "Fuck me," I say, pulling to a stop. The biker with the M60 attached to his handlebars cruises up and stops next to me. He turns off his headlight, then he motions to roll down the window. Before our palaver, he pulls out a vial of powder, jams it up his nose and snorts. His eyes go wild. He just got hit by a freight train of something potent, and now he's in an entirely different reality. "Hammer down," he growls. "I'll keep Smokey off your tail." The other bikers circle around. I put the truck in reverse and turn, and I notice that the roadblock begins moving slowly, wolves ready to hunt. As I turn the Cougar, I see that the biker has finished loading the ammo belt into the M60. A gust of wind blows back his long, greasy hair, making him look like a madman. "Robbie, we can still..." But before I can finish my sentence, the biker unloads. Hellfire pours from the end of the M60's barrel. The thunderous crack, 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 so loud my ears feel like they're bleeding. Both cop cars, which are in front of the shadowy cars further back in the formation, are shredded. Before turning to dust, their windshields are coated with red. As bullets from the M60 vaporize the bodies on the other side, a crimson cloud pours out of the busted windows, swirling up into the halogen light from the nearby street lamps. "What the fuck?" I start, but Robbie punches me in the jaw as hard as he can. "Fucking go!" he screams over the thunder. I put the Cougar in gear and take off after the bikers, who've already started hauling ass way down the highway in the opposite direction. Looking in the side mirror, I see that the cop cars have been reduced to shredded tin, metal slivers sticking out like a pop can blown up with an M80. The SWAT van guns it, driving toward the maniac biker who's still unloading with the M60. The massive rounds ricocheting off the armored truck like laser beams. The gunfire stops as the truck thumps over his bike and his body. I turn back to the road, shift up, and jam the pedal to the floor. Behind us, D starts yelling, "Fucking book it!" I glance over my shoulder. His eyes are wide with terror. She's changing. The girl barely passes for a girl anymore. Her arms have transformed, turning into suction cup covered tentacles. They've gotten bigger. They look like twin fire hoses snaking through the back of the cab. She's also started barfing up liquid, bright green, something that doesn't belong in a human body. But I realize that she's never been human. She's been something else all along. "Keep your eyes on the road," Robbie yells. I turn back, barely avoiding an oncoming semi, which obliterates one of the black sedans that's been gaining ground on my flank. Looking into the rear view, I realize my estimate for how many cops there was way off. There are at least 6 squad cars. 6 of the tinted windowed, black-bodied cruisers. The SWAT van, which has finished off the madman biker with the M60, swings out and joins the chase. It's just us and 3 of Mr. Gray's bikers, each one unloading gunfire into the cars in pursuit, blasting out tires and sending them careening off into the darkness, only for another to take their place. Robbie drops the map. Our route is fucked. "Drive," he screams. He rolls down his window. "I'll buy us time." Meanwhile, D has thrown open the back of the Cougar. The HK-416 erupts, sending 2 cars in pursuit wheeling off in opposite directions. Their driver's dead with the first squeeze of the trigger. Robbie's out the passenger window, unloading on our pursuers. He's firing over the head of a biker who sped up to lead me to the lake. The biker cuts left suddenly, and I follow suit. The turn is so sharp that 38,000 pounds of truck almost goes on 2 wheels. Robbie almost gets thrown out, his body parallel to the dark asphalt. D and the transforming girl hold on, The limp noodle wimp smashes into the wall of the truck, knocked out cold. Before Dee can grab him, the guy tumbles and falls out the back of the Cougar, fed like a piece of meat into the grinder of wheels in pursuit behind us. For the first time, I ignore the machine gun clatter, the shotgun explosions, the roar of motors. I'm back in Afghanistan getting my brothers in arms out of a firefight. I put my eyes on the road. In the distance, I can see it. The lake is at the base of the hill we're driving down, still a mile below. It shines like a blue jewel in the night, moonlight glancing off the surface in a pale flood. Right, left, straight, rinse and repeat. The biker in front knows exactly where he's going, like he's done it 1,000 times. The roar of his hog drifts back. I press the pedal all the way to the floor to keep up. Over the chaos of everything else, I hear a new noise. It's a liquid screech like a foghorn triggered underwater. "What the fuck?" Dee says. He stops shooting for the moment, ill-advised. One of our pursuers gets off a shot, which hits Dee in his side, but he doesn't even notice. I look back. The girl has transformed into something otherworldly. She still has green eyes, which are searching the foreign interior of the Cougar. She has the same red nails, but now they look like claws. And she sprouted tentacles, her arms and legs joined by 4 more. She's an octopus or a squid, something that lives in unknown depths. Her body is jet black. Her mouth snaps open and closed like a hawk's beak. Her eyes roll around crazily, and she continues screeching like a caged animal. Her skin has begun drying up again. "Water!" I yell. Robbie points to the back of the Cougar as bullets continue flying in. Dee's hit 3 more times. Once in each leg, another one goes into his side. With dying breath, he grabs a massive jug of water from the wall, shoots off the sealed top with his Colt 45, and dumps it over the girl, the octopus creature that she's become. I look ahead, continuing to follow the biker in front, chancing another quick look back after getting onto a straightaway. I see that the girl's body has soaked up the water in a second, and she's grown in size. She's huge now, filling up the entire back of the Cougar. She pushes Dee aside gently with a tentacle, then crawls toward the rear open doors. "Wait," yells Robbie. "Stop!" But she keeps going. Her body is riddled with gunfire, but it has no effect. She soaks up the bullets like they're droplets of rain. I look into the side mirror and see 3 of her tentacles shoot out toward the cars in pursuit. The first 2 smash through the 2 pursuing cars' windshields, making the vehicles and their occupants explode. The other tentacles pick up a car each, one shadowy cruiser, the other the SWAT van. They throw the cars 100 feet into the air, and they disappear into the darkness. The other biker on my flank is still there somehow, but amazed by what he's seeing. He loses control of the bike and crashes away into the trees. The octopus creature in the back of the truck continues fighting against our pursuers, but more cars keep coming. They'll never stop until they have her. I turn back ahead to see that we're almost to the lake. I press the gas pedal down even harder, pushing it through the floor. I follow the biker in the lead across the street that runs parallel to the lake. Before I can make sense of what's happening, I see headlights coming on Robbie's side. Another SWAT van trying to cut us off, going 60 miles an hour. It smashes into the Cougar. My vision fades as we do a slow motion tumble toward the lake, and the lights go out a few seconds later. I return to the world, my head pounding. Even from upside down, I can tell that the cougar is totaled. We're flipped over. We're 50 yards from the lake. I undo my seatbelt, drop down to the ceiling. Looking outside, I see that Robbie's lying on the sand, 15 feet from the truck. His body looks broken. In the back of the truck, I see that the octopus creature is gone. Dee's body is back there. He's dead from either the crash or being shot or some combination of the two. I get out of the truck and hobble over to Robbie, my body screaming in agony with every step. Despite the carnage at the lake's edge, it's beautiful out. The moon is overhead. That friendly face my mom showed me as a kid is looking down like a kindly stranger. Ahead of Robbie, I notice one of the bikers. He's laying on his back, his hog nowhere in sight. He crashed, just like us. 3 guys in suits are making their way across the sandy bank of the lake, their profiles illuminated by the headlights of the cars behind them and the half-mutilated SWAT van that T-boned us. The biker begs for his life, but one of the guys in a suit pulls out a silenced pistol and shoots him between the eyes. I pick up the pace. "Robbie," I say, "we have to go now." I'm used to dragging friends out of trouble, but my strength is gone. Something feels broken. Robbie's eyes blink open. I can't," he groans. "Can't move. Something's twisted." Behind him, I see that the 3 guys in suits, agents from some top-secret government department, are getting closer. They all have their guns drawn. I think for a second about trying to lift Robbie on my shoulders, but I quickly realize that option's out. So I cover Robbie with my body. I'll take the first bullet, buy him any time that I can. Inside, though, I realize the truth. This is where it ends. This is our Alamo. Coincidental that we die on a bed of sand in the States, when so many do the same, far away from home in the Middle East. The agents arrive. They point their guns at us. Overhead, that kindly stranger moon keeps staring down. In my last few seconds of life, he brings me comfort. "You should have given her over," says the agent in charge. "But it's done now." Suddenly, across the bright, pale face of the moon, I see something cross. It's a strange, unnatural shape. A tentacle. I heard the hairpin trigger of the agent's gun creaking as he starts to pull it. But before he finishes, an oily black hand reaches over his face. It has ruby red claws. They sink into his eye sockets. With incredible alien strength, the thing rips back the agent's head. His neck opens like a second mouth, spraying Robbie and me with blood. Before the other 2 agents can make sense of what's happening, they meet the same end. I sit up. I look out at the water. The octopus creature has risen out of it, 1,000 times the size as it was in the back of the cougar. Its body is hydrated with lake water. It's at full strength. It levitates, a waterfall pouring out beneath it. 3 bashes from the other tentacles destroy the fleet of cop cars and the SWAT van that's left, and the chorus of screams quickly dies. The creature looks down on Robbie and me indifferently. Now, it's risen 20 feet over the lake. Its body blocks out the light of the moon. creating a terrifying alien silhouette. I see the girl's eyes, the same ones I saw in the back room at Earl's. Bright, emerald green. They're windows into an alternate universe. With a sudden flash of movement and blinding light, the creature explodes away toward the stars. The force of it sends a tidal wave of water rushing up from the lake, covering Robbie and me and rinsing away our sins. Then, the thing is gone. I'm lying with Robbie on the sand. The job is done. A job so strange, so unfucking believable, that it doesn't even count as a job. Sirens sound in the distance, getting closer by the second. But before they arrive, I feel two hands grab beneath my armpits. I'm being pulled away across the sand. Looking behind me, I see Mr. Gray. The last surviving biker is pulling Robbie. "We have to get you the hell out of here," says Mr. Gray. "They're coming." Letting Mr. Gray pull me away, I stare up at the stars. I can't shake the feeling that something is staring back. I wake up and feel sunlight shining through a window. It's morning. Hours have passed since what happened at the lake. I blink open my eyes. My body feels like it went through a thresher, but I'm alive. Sitting next to my bed is Mr. Gray. On his other side is Robbie, fast asleep in the adjacent bed. I see Robbie's chest rise and fall. He's alive too, despite the odds. The last remaining biker sits in a chair by the doorway, peeking through the blinds, his sawed-off shotgun laying across his lap. We're in a cheap motel room. If I open the nightstand, I know there'll be a Gideon's Bible waiting for me. I clear my throat. My chest blooms with pain. "What the hell happened?" I asked. Mr. Gray smiles. It's the first time I've seen him doing anything but glare. His gold teeth shine in the morning light. "Kid," he says, "you'll learn eventually that some things defy explanation." He puts a comforting hand on my shoulder, as comforting as a hand like his can be. He stares at me with eyes that have seen things I haven't. He knows truths I'd never believe. But I've discovered the tip of an enormous and bizarre iceberg. It'll take a lifetime to make sense of it. Mr. Gray smiles even bigger. Those teeth. His mouth's a fucking goldmine. "Just know this, kid," he says. "You're in the game now."